In this lesson, we'll learn how to use 3ds Max's Reaction Manager. The Reaction Manager is kind of like the Wire Parameters tool, only we can create relative links between the parameters we wire together. So this is really neat, very useful. We use this system in our facial rigging tutorial to make sure that the mouth deforms naturally as the jaw opens. That's just one idea we can use it for. In this case, we're going to go ahead and use it for our landing gear, making sure that it opens and closes based off of the values we have set in our front and center custom parameters. So again, this is a relative link we create. An idea would be setting the landing gear to a value of 2, and that's of course just an arbitrary value, but we can have it set to 2 while our custom channel is set to 100%, and that will work properly. And we also have a graph we can tweak to get the exact behavior we'd like. But let's go ahead and get started and take a look at this Reaction Manager. We find it underneath the animation menu. From there, underneath animation layers, here it is, the Reaction Manager. Right, so at first glance, this might seem pretty intimidating, but this is actually quite fun to work with. Once you start to get used to how it works, you could start to create some really fun systems with it. So the first thing we need to do is choose a master parameter. So notice right here at the top left, we have this green plus icon. Let's go ahead and click that. And now we could go in and click the animation control that we would like to add to the Reaction Manager. So it's going to be modified object, secondary controls, custom attributes, and here it is, landing gear center. We'll start there. Alright, so now what we need to do is choose the slave parameter. So that's going to of course be our center landing gear object. Remember, we linked all of our pieces to this landing gear pad. So we have a few options here. We could either use the second plus icon, and that kind of works like the first, in that we'd have to go in and pick the object that we would like to register. Or we can use the last icon, which I like to do because that allows us to first have the object selected. So sometimes when we're picking through objects, we might not grab the object that we need using that second icon, but the third is the way to go, because with it, again, we just go in and select the object we would like to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and select the landing pad here, and now we could go in and use the third icon, and we'll choose the position Z-axis as well as the position X, and then we also need to choose the rotate Z channel. Now if you go in and accidentally add a slave that you would not like to work with, simply go ahead and select that state here and choose delete selected. It also works for your master objects. So if we wanted to, we could go ahead and clear that out. I'll go ahead and press Ctrl Z to undo that back. Alright, great. So again, we'll want to go in and add the other two channels. It's going to be position X. We'll want to select our master, go in and add the two channels. So there's the X. We'll go back to add slave, and we'll add the rotation Z. Alright, wonderful. If you're ever unclear as to what channel to add, well, remember, it all depends on your coordinate system. So for the move tool, have it set to parent, and then for the rotate tool, we want that to be set to gimbal. Okay, great. So once we have added these masters and slaves, you'll see that we have an initial state established, all at 0 values, because our master was already at 0, and we've made sure to freeze transforms on these objects so they do have a 0 state now. Alright, so what we need to do next is go in and tweak our master channel. Very important. We need to make sure that this is done in the correct order. So we'd go in and find our master channel. Here it is, landing gear center. We'd set that to our max value. So right now I have it set to 100%. And now we'll enter into create mode because we're ready to tweak our slave object. So remember, you'd go in, adjust your master value, and then enter in create mode, and now we can start to tweak the slave object. So let's go in and start to adjust this object. Go ahead and move it up, slide it forward, and now we can go ahead and rotate it in the z-axis. I'll go ahead and press the A key to turn off angle snapping so we can get a precise rotate value to make sure that this fits properly inside of the aircraft. From there, what I'd like to do is press Alt W to switch over to our 4-panel view, just to find a nice side view for our airship, which right now is our front view. So I'll go ahead and right click in the front view panel, press Alt W so we can zoom in and just focus in on it. And now we can press F3 to go to wireframe mode so we can make sure that this fits properly within its socket. So let's go in and start to adjust this a little bit more. I'll just translate it up in the z-axis, and I think we are good to go. So once we have finished tweaking our slave object, we then would create a state here, and now we can exit create mode. Take a look at what's created. Not only are our offset values saved, but we also have a mini curve editor that we can use to tweak each value. So we could go through and select each of our slave channels to take a look at the state that has been saved, and we could go in and tweak these keys if we'd like. Alright, but even more important, if we were to go ahead and select our animation control, take a look. When we start to use our landing gear channel, you can see that it's working properly. Let's go ahead and press Alt W so we can focus in on the perspective view and take a look. Alright, so that's really neat how well that works. Now, something else that's very important is that once a channel has been added to the Reaction Manager, it cannot be tweaked unless you are using create or edit mode. So if I try to go in and grab this landing gear pad and start to tweak it in the z-axis, notice we cannot. In the x-axis we cannot. However, in the y-axis we most certainly can tweak it because it has not been added to this system. Now what if we needed to go in and edit how this behaves, this slave object? Well, it's just a matter of first adjusting your master value. So I'll go ahead and set the master here for this center channel to 100%, and then we can go in and select the state that we'd like to adjust. So in this case, I'll go in and adjust the position Z and choose edit mode. Now we could go in and bring down the object. I'll go ahead and make sure that this is set to 100% again. I accidentally adjusted the animation control. Alright, so again, we have that set to 100%. We could go in and select the object that we've added to the system as a slave, so we could start to adjust our Z channel. I'm going to make sure that's selected and start to just kind of bring this down a bit. And now watch this. Once we exit edit mode, you can see that the value has been updated. If we were to go to our animation control and start to adjust this, you can see that now the landing gear does not come up all the way. Alright, really neat. But chances are we want it to remain closed when it's at a closed state. That might be a good idea. So let's go ahead and go back to edit mode. We'll make that adjustment. We'll select the state we'd like to adjust. Go ahead and bring this up. And again, I'm selecting the animation control here. Anxious to get into animation. But let's go ahead and just bring this up a bit more. And now we'll go ahead and exit edit mode. Alright, so watch. When we go back to our animation control, you can see everything works properly. So we just have to be very careful and make sure that things are done in the correct order. If you need to edit anything, make sure that you adjust your master value. Then you could go in and adjust the state. And then you can go ahead and exit edit mode, and everything has been saved. Alright, so what we're going to do is stop the lesson here. In the next lesson, we're going to go ahead and take care of the front landing gear.